Poetry Flash virtual reading. We're beaming to you from the Poetry Flash office in Berkeley, California, and we're really glad that you're here with us. I'm Joyce Jenkins, Poetry Flash director and editor, coming to you, as you know, from the West Coast, and set to celebrate the Omnidawn Spring 2020 list. These wonderful books that were caught in this amazing pandemic situation we find ourselves in. And this is just our way to celebrate not only the wonderful list here and this wonderful group of poets, but also to celebrate Omnidawn and to applaud your courage in getting through this year with these wonderful new books. There'll be a link to Omnidawn, various links in the chat box to Omnidawn to purchase these books. And please purchase them from Omnidawn. You will find this service is as good as Amazon, I promise you. And you will have a good experience. So please purchase them from Omnidawn and support this wonderful press and these amazing poets. Please check out poetryflash.org for new reviews and interviews. We have a poetry and healing column, new literary events and workshops for all of California are posted there, and all online events, and there'll be something there that will work for you. To sign up for our future virtual events, including the Watershed Environmental Poetry Festival that's going to be in January, scroll down on poetryflash.org to join our mailing list. Here to introduce the poets is our associate editor, Richard Silberg.
Hi. For starts, let me say that I've known Ken Keegan and Rusty Morrison, who bring you Omnidawn Press, for 30 or 40 years, and they are dear friends and deep friends of Poetry Flash. So I'm about to praise Omnidawn. Take my objectivity for what it's worth. You won't need, if you buy these books, as I hope you will, you'll see for yourself the brilliance and the diversity of these authors and the beauty of the book. The book design itself is wonderful, creative. So really, Omnidawn it's a world-class, innovative press, and it's a continual consummation of Rusty Morrison's belief in the possibility of innovative poetry. So there we go. Now I'll try to hold these books up, to remember to hold them up for you. We have 6 authors, and the first, we're going to be alphabetical. So Desirée, you're leading off here. Here is her book. Can you see? I hope I'm showing it to you. The title is Raft of Flame. And the background of this book is Cortez and the genocide and violence in Mexico. And there's a blending in this book, a series of blendings. There's a blending of Spanish and English, which comes off Desiree's own parental blending of a Mexican father and an American mother. she is a painter as well as a poet. So we've got color. The book is in 3 sections, which are azure, carmine, I believe, and violet. And we meet Spanish painters, Velázquez, Goya, the Mexican Frida Kahlo, and others. And this is passionately written. This is a passionate, sensual book. So here she comes, Desirée Alvarez.
Thank you, Richard, for that lovely introduction. And thank you, Joyce and Poetry Flash. And thank you, Rusty and Ken and Omnidawn for letting me make my book and making it look so beautiful. And it's really great to be reading here with my fellow readers. And I want to thank this amazing audience. I see so many beloved names in the room, and I wish I could be in an actual room and give you all hugs. So big virtual hug to everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. So after that lovely introduction, I feel like I should represent each section of the book. So I'm going to start with a poem from the first section called Call and Response Between Colonizer and Colonized. Call the medicine man, call the fool, call the owl, tecolote, tecolote, tecolote. I've held the bird so long, it can no longer cry. Lean is my nest and colorless. Can you see your face? Always a god behind the mask. Savage layers, intestinal idols, depths that cannot be uttered. Was there already a war before the soldiers arrived? The shield moves first with feathers, then with snakes. Are you born slave or tyrant? I am vanishing on the threshold. And did they change your language? Look, how odd the word. A pair of eyes and a harsh sound. Interruption. Trance first, then entrance. And the next poem I'm going to read is called Curiosity Has More Syllables Than Conquer. In the jungle, when it's been raining for days, I imagine sunset as a red steak on a dish. Every 6 or 7 years, he would visit to see how I was growing. My braids, all kinds of autumn colors. I am sure they loved each other. Trees sending sugar, collected from sun, down to roots for winter, and how mother wore her hair, and what time was dinner. Underneath myth is the layer where birds fly at you. No one is accountable. Drama without gods. Drama with only weather and blood. Pain forgotten, but the drawings of parents recollected. Even passion has a strategy. History let me in. Here is the path the snake took, shedding skins along the way. I'm collecting them to make a shroud. And then from the Carmine section, a poem called Kafka's Diary, which opens with some words from Kafka's diary. The world is conquered, and we have watched it with open eyes. We can therefore quietly turn away and live on. That was from Kafka. Gales blow flower into warrior. The Armada's great white petals float olive seas. Oh, ancestor, live mask of hammered gold, do you see the children's throats cry open with your hollow eyes of storm? Wicker cages shake with parrot screams, stoneways run with blood and spice spilled. A machete sings to a leashed neck. All the plumage of a heritage lost. There are no pictures. How would a family look? The homeless child plays all the sounds of father and mother. Spell of dirt calling to water. Press ghostly lips to clavicle. Cloak us all in a long embrace. Of red and white clover, of his dark skin, of her fair skin, of his braided black hair, of her perfume, of petal, fur, stamen, foxglove, hydrangea, of his saguaro, of her coral azalea, of his gaunt fingers and long torso, of apple fall, of iris, of his vagabond, of her debutante, of her blonde, of golden chain bloom, of avocado tree, of lime, of his Spanish twang, of his red chili ristras, of his disappearance, of her blue-gray eyes, of her fast driving and slow gardening, of her softball pitching arm, of his guitar, of her petite waist, of her roast chicken, of my olive skin, my dark hooded eyes. I arrive, full of unasked questions, of his mystery, of their pride, of my shyness, my retreat to tulip and hickory thick forests. Please do not ask me who I am or where I'm from. I'm gone to the woods with snake plant and rain owlet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Desirée. Beautiful. Our next reader, letter C, Anthony Cody. Here's his book, Borderlands. I'm trying to give you some pictorial book of this. This book was a finalist for the National Book Award. And it's based in the violent history of the U.S. and Mexico through the Mexican-American War on through Pete Wilson and Proposition 187, the whole ugly, really horrendous history of lynchings and burnings and land grabs and humiliation. The book itself it's an adventure in creative surprise from the lean cutback language, very different from Desiree's lovely, passionate language. And instead, it's an intense, unexpected cutback language. There are illustrations, unusual, suggestive illustrations, and then the pages themselves, where you need to buy this book and see it, and I hope you will. The typography, the page design, the arrangement of it. It's a creative adventure. So let's give him a warm welcome, Anthony Cody.
Thank you, Richard. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that today I'm reading from the traditional lands of the Yokuts. I pay my respect to the native elders of the past and the present and to this land. And I just want all of us here today to honor and acknowledge those stewards of these lands and also the lands wherever you are tuning in today virtually. Thank you for that introduction. Richard, it's an honor today to be here with all of you virtually. I've been super excited for like 8 months to get a chance to read with Desirée, Jennifer, LM, David, Craig, and I'm glad that we finally made it happen. And also I just want to give a shout out to Omnidawn and Ken and Rusty and Rob and Kayla for just being so supportive through all of this and publishing my first book. And also a shout out to Olivia. They were super, super instrumental in helping kind of lay out the book in its reality. And I appreciate their vision of working with me and making it happen. I'm going to do a little bit of screen sharing around the poems to start, and then come back into the frame to close it out. So let me do that. I'm going to start with the opening poem of Borderland Apocrypha. And what you'll see is based on an incident where someone decided to sort of be like microaggressive to me when I was trying to get a passport photo. So the title of the poem is "Standing in line to take a passport photo. An old white man looks at me and claims I am running. Standing here because my grandpa ran away from home to sell perfume in a Zocalo at 9. In line, I am a lot of things. And since I am a lot of things, I am everything he cannot imagine. A passport photo asks me to 2x2 myself and capture what I am in neutral. And I recall I have yet to see the chambers of my heart turn tusk. An old white man is not Gil Scott Heron saying, because I always feel like running, not away, because there is no such place, is not how you pronounce exile or escapar. Looks at me how Teddy Roosevelt died coveting a white buffalo. Claims I am afraid. No, I am a wall. No, I am a mirror. I am still, so still. A portion of the book really delves into the violences after the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo that were committed against Mexicans and Mexican Americans. And this poem, I should say, these next two definitely involve lynching and violences. So I just wanted to kind of give that trigger warning. This is actually the first woman who was lynched in California at Downeyville, kind of sort of northwest of the Lake Tahoe area. La Sirena, a Mexican lynching after the hanging death of Josefa Segovia, Downeyville, California, July 5th, 1851. Guilt is not guilty, is not free, is not noose, is not jury, is not self, is not defense, is not judge, is not verdict, is not appeal, is not the ways in which a miner pans and pans and pans and pans and pans until a fleck appears. Eventually, something must be found. Eventually, someone must let the blade taste, make, tear a seam. A seam uncooked is the point in which a man spills red from the white heat glowing and heaving until she stops him, until the town claims siren, claims capital. Josefa is not Juana, is not Juanita, is not an assembled bridge of independence atop the Yuba River, now court, now kangaroo, now noose and song, left to walk through, left to float above, left to the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and how all men are created equal until a border born, and there is money to be made, until man is not labor, is not woman, is not Mexican, is not white, is not the moment a town stops to watch a person face the crowd and wrap a rope around the neck, claims leap. In the air, flight is real, is probable, is the moment of weightlessness before the snap, before the eye decides to untangle the dark, the other, the unknown, before the river parts and she kicks and kicks below, until they say she is consumed, until they accept silences, until she dives with a deep breath of water. The people accept her body thrashes beneath surface. But this is not a burial. This is a defiance, a kicking, singing chant. Another poem, this one is centered around the bandit who may or may not have existed, who may or may not have also been lynched, who may or may not have had his head taken, and then may or may not have been taken on a barnstorming tour of his head, which is what you're seeing disembodied on the page, the actual flyer of that tour. La Corona, a Mexican lynching number 47. Anything can be trophy, just as anything can be ashtray, coffee cup, curb, flower pot, the inside of your wrist, the inside of another's wrist. Claim anything, anything. Witness, badge, halo, horn, colony, victim, vein, coffin, president, cadaver, the quiet breath of a body at rest. Claim, 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 anything. I think I'm going to close with the last poem from the collection, the title poem. And I want to do that because through all the trauma and all the ache, one of the things as I was exiting the book, I thought about how do we take it back? How do we come back? How do we unburden? How do we find a new path forward? And that's hopefully where the book exited from. Borderland Apocrypha. If your father tells you, and your teacher tells you, and the pastor at your family's church tells you to perceive breath for existing, heart for source, grave as final, voice as kingdom, and the shaking as the escape of the earth's heat, you believe the repetition, but don't. Believe that earthquakes are fed by the buried, shoulders leaning in and sinewed by the unseen, combative to covert. Recall that beneath you, nothing is still. Recall that beneath you are the others. No, there is no such thing as living. Living is a birth to control you, to fear no longer being present, to fear this, whatever your this is, can leave you. The night's knuckle on your door is not consent, but a decay of the ego, unheard, a nearness unknown until an apnea arrives, tearing you from the bed for the noose, the blade, the bullet, the fingers forcing the larynx. You were never living. Your father will tell you, the priest and prophet and the succulent on the windowsill will not stop you and say you are not living. You are present. Some tomorrow, there will be no sunrise. None will say, where is, where is, where is. They will believe you are no longer. Your blood will mourn. The other will gather to publicly demonstrate life is proprietary. Do not listen. Join the present at the tectonic and continue to be. Push. Push your ear against the mantle to hear the sound of the pavement's rupture. Push. The city will not sleep. Push. The flora, fauna, stone, nod. You have always been present. Push. A valley is quiet, whether cradling or culling. Push. The television and the paper will say the fault is active. Push. The scientists will diagram the earth halved and demonstrate why nothing remains static. Push. The present remain here. Push. Here. Push. Here. Push. Leave. Return. You exist. Push. You are present. Push. Swallow them into quiet. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Anthony Cody from Borderland, Apocrypha. Our next reader is Jennifer Hasegawa. And here, if I can give you some picture of it, is her book, La Chica's Field Guide to Bonsai Living. And just at the bottom of the first page, there is this language, which begins, molten language pollinates the voiceless to birth the supernatural, just for the language itself. And it seems to predict a magical realist journey, which is not inaccurate, but it doesn't get to the wild, unexpected Hasegawaism of what is actually happening here. It begins, the book begins as though it's going to be a sci-fi space adventure, and then it quickly comes back to Hawaii, where Jennifer is born. That Hawaiian way of talking, I wish I could. Hui, there's a wonderful quote that gets you there, and then it goes virtually everywhere. So buckle up. Here she comes, Jennifer Hasegawa.
Thanks so much, Richard. Hi, everyone. I want to thank every one of you for joining the reading today. It really means so much to each of us to be able to share some stories with you and make some connections like through this screen. And you gave me a reason to put on a shirt with a collar today. So we'll get started. So I'll read the full poem that includes the quote that Richard just shared with us. It's called Rockets with Rear View Mirrors. They found a lack of life on one of my planets, despite the presence of blood and soil in the water. In space, as in most things, go slow to go fast. They want to colonize Mars because it is the closest thing they have to home. I want more than an extra 39 minutes. Venusian nights last 100 days. Give me this century to comb through the sweet oil of its atmosphere, survey its darkened lava fields. It's hot, but not hot enough to melt our resolve to really fix it this time. Propulsion units burn out, disengage, and drop to lower orbits. Molten language pollinates the voiceless to birth the supernatural. Astounding alien, clean progenitor of the new tongue of the ages, you are here. Surface tension. There's a ring in town Trina wants to buy, so she says she's going to stop at the casino to get some cash. Systems of tension bias things. She speeds across the casino floor, taps buttons, and swipes hot hands across screens like a magician. Systems of tension make us move. She throws herself into the bonus round as if she has only known winning. Systems of tension are fed by fingers crossed tightly in pockets. Deafening light, blinding touch, in utero casino, tracing latitudes of wealth, longitudes of power. I remember a time when the only thing I hadn't lost was my body. And so I said to myself, sell it then. Call it corporeal entrepreneurship backed by algorithms, rainbows of pills, and 20 ounces of road rage in a speeding car with no driver. Robots will keep the surface taut until they cannot. And when it breaks, they'll call it an apocalypse. But our hands will be unbound, and our faces, our glistening faces, will flex in recognition, flash their alphabet of atoms to spell out a new world of glorious rocks and fascinating residues. Flaws. He glowed wonder when he saw the ground giving them up. Waxy skins peeled back, revealing brown gleaming in the Borderland sun. He thumped the globes for answers, heard rustling and low hanging mesquite, and in the stillness in between leaves, lowed the heart's acknowledgement. For this, he thanked, grasped, and plucked in a good way. So happy he would have floated off if the antler palm hadn't snared his shoelace and escorted him back to his truck. At checkpoint, uniforms smashed everyone with hammers, looking for kilos of cocaine growing in gourds. Flaws in the mind are replicated on the land. Skins cracked, seeds shivering. Flaws in the mind are replicated on the body. Guard said, "Stop your crying, it's just gourds." He said, "These are the hearts of deer, bodies poised and muscular. Listen for them, come for you in the night. Metal totem whirring, with the flawed focusing of glass eyes upon you, so accustomed to the sound of surveillance, you suspect it is the tune of existence. Thump, thump, thump. This is the sound of velvet grazing against fresh concrete, 2,000 miles bleeding. And I'd like to close with a poem I wrote in memory of my ceramic arts professor in college, Ken Price, who's, very grateful to have his drawing on the cover of my book. It's called Levitating Sculpture. And, you know, some things that I learned about building and sculpture really carried through to the way I build poetry today. So I really did want to memorialize his vision and his guidance to me. So I'll read this and close out. It's called Prayer Ceramic. Start. It was the perfect dumpster, sparking like a roadster and spitting the kind of stink and juicy trash required to construct the future. Got $1 million, walked down Figueroa at 4 a.m., 39-cent taco here and leg of greasy chicken there. Spend the morning in an immaculate bathroom, unwanted obsessions, tracing veins between each excruciating cramp, pushing toxic organica from mouth and sphincter through elaborate tunnels paved with gold and gingered salmonella rods. Before. As for the construction of the past, the white noise in which Homo sapiens love with super action and slap each other's faces so hard, every pair of sunglasses ever owned fly off into the street like a flock of sick birds. What of it? Now, run to river, mountain, valley, shore, trout, eagle, grizzly, bee, gawk with awe, and then shoot at close range. Bang ruffles stiff science across the scape. This is a feast of human sperm and horse ova. The offal of rich data melts on contact, stuffed with conflict and never felt better. When warm interplanetary winds lift my hair and turn it into time itself, tick tock, spin a lump, susurrus of the wheel between thighs, sings flippity flap, lubed with slip, raise walls, shouting prayers at greenware, davening that you might not crack. Baby, I picked you up and lifted you into the fire. And the world is alarmed at 2 feet. The world is alarmed at 2 feet. The flat foot of death came, but so did fame. Most of the time, it starts with a teapot, but on rare occasions, it ends with a universe. Thanks very much.
Okay, Levitating with Jennifer Hasegawa. Our next reader is David Koehn. David, I'm remembering that's how you pronounce your last name. Correct me if, cool, okay. We've got Scatterplot. Yeah, now Scatterplot, there's an, I've thought a lot about how to introduce David's poetry because it's unusual in a kind of an immaterial way. There's an intense borderlessness to the writing. First of all, there's no border between the author and the reader, so it's self-reflexive poetry, which is in itself not very unusual. But there's also, you can move from anywhere into an intense discussion of mathematics or astronomy or David, there's a family unit here. And David talks with his brilliant young son, Bay, and they jump into technical biology. It goes virtually anywhere. There's an intense kind of actualization. You move right to the physical and philosophical realities here. So here we go, David Koehn.
Greetings, everybody. First, a big thanks to Rusty and Ken and all at Omnidawn, to Richard and Joyce and all at Poetry Flash. And thanks for that introduction, Richard. I think unusual is perhaps the biggest compliment I have ever received in regards to my work, and it's strikingly flattering when you say that. And a big thanks to Desirée, Anthony, Jennifer, Craig, and LM for their amazing work. It's humbling to be reading with them. To Tucker Nichols for collaborating with me on the cover of Scatterplot, which I noticed the cover is actually blending into my background, which is the cover for Scatterplot. And to all of you for this time together. It's a blessing that you all are here to share this with us. And finally to Gargoyle for publishing this first poem I'm going to read called Delta 10. The green plastic fly swatter on the end table looks like a bug. Down Vasco, just past the peak, off to the west, a stand of windmills guard the edge of the contour where grass meets the cirrocumulus clouds. There are a valley oak, the bulb of canopy, an assortment of synapses forming its thought, a series of self-describing APIs. After the game, I drive home alone because we take 2 cars everywhere we go as a precaution. There are no right answers, only answers that move the conversation forward. And if you don't believe that there are wrong ones. In the restroom, on a white radish-shaped sconce, the green, gray, black, and red housefly waits to do work. Somewhere near there, a woman sets up her Valley of the Dolls. Her dollhouse overlooks the view of the most fashionable in the favored nation. Quote, I make the poem of evil also. I commemorate that part also, end quote. At night, when I walk the sidewalk to the ball field, streetlights give enough space for night sky to show stars. I wish I knew more about constellations, the Chinese name of Orion, or the Russian nomenclature for Ursa Minor. I remember my friend Dave from college. I was his friend, likely his only friend, the first person I met where I could see an internal world different than mine and vast in a way I only saw glimpses of. He was tall, 6 feet 6 inches, and maybe 145 pounds. Not even his afro could hide the skeleton wanting to walk out of his body. He would walk here and there and everywhere. And when he felt the need, he would stop by the library and he would chat with me about the Collat's conjecture or the Harry-Ball theorem, the first a function that when applied reduces any positive integer to 1. The second, a proof that no function can produce a flawless sphere. He was gay. He may not have known that yet. He may still not know that. My son, on one of our walks, explained axolotls to me as one of the few amphibians that never become truly amphibious, choosing to stay aquatic for the entirety of their lives, as if they prefer to never see the world outside of water, the dangers unwarranted. Spoiler alert. In Les Incendies, pure math operates as a framing device for the strange series of seemingly impossible occurrences leading to Marwan's torturer and rapist being her son and father to his own brother and sister. The triptych fails the off-white surrounding the gray lithograph of a peregrine's feather. Look up. Insert a description of the first object you see. Salt or sugar in water before boiling corn? Either. Never arsenic. I don't have a truth. You don't have a truth. We have both seen unbreakable truths broken with the glance from your mother. My eldest son's second full-length feature premiered last month. The desire of the lover you desire, an unexpected death. This is a good thing. The way the guitar in Deer Tick's 20 Miles clutters and declutters the vocals. The way the green painting of 10,000 tiny brushstrokes, each dabbed on like the Chinese character for bird, makes flight less difficult. I don't have time to explain. I don't have to explain time. Let me explain. The dime store guitar I bought to learn to play sits in the corner, glistening with a universe of dust. Dust is composed mostly of human skin. The men who teased Dave when he'd walk by could only tolerate being ignored for so long. When next I saw him, his face was barely recognizable, and the scarring never went away. And now for the hypothesis, the ingredients of what holds. Should I describe it? Do I need to? Isn't it just enough to allude to it? The orbital bone over his left eye had been shattered. There were something like 100 stitches that ran from just left of his chin, up the crease, through both his lips, through his left nostril, between his eyes, into and through part of his scalp. Don't mind me, I am rewriting the Book of Spectacles as a periodic table of consequences. The day I discover you are Dorian Gray, I discover the children of trick questions. Something changed in him. Something departed and left a space I could feel but not identify. What left him? The edges of the wound left a hole the body can't repair. I never feel so alone as when I am home, and sometimes I remember a hayfield, now a walking path paved as a series of S's. When Bay, my youngest, told me his favorite amphibian was the axolotl, he described them as a hairless cat if it were an amphibian, or what the skeleton of a catfish would look like if fish had exoskeletons. He said they can regenerate any part of their body, any part, and not just arms, but over time, even organs and parts of their brains. He paused, looked up at me and said, even a part of their heart. Thank you.
David, you caught me by surprise, man. You leapt off stage with the axolotls there. Thank you so much. Our next reader will be Craig Santos Perez, and here's the book, Habitat Threshold. Now, Craig is an indigenous Chamorro from Guam, which gave him an inside look at colonialism. Sitting right from home, he didn't have to go anywhere to get hip to American colonialism. There is the image that the book basically begins with, the device, the reality of a daughter, a baby daughter, and a father who wants to protect her, who sings lullabies to her against the outside world of refugees and war and pollution and capitalism and plastic and the whole hopeless, but not hopeless, but the whole scene of it. So this book, it goes so many different places. It ends with a praise poem for Pacific Oceania, which I'm presuming is Guam and more islands and places. But this is echo poetics to the nth. It's a fierce, dedicated book. So here he comes, Craig Santos Perez.
Day. Thank you so much, Richard, for that thoughtful introduction. Thank you so much to Poetry Flash, Joyce, Molly for setting us up today. Thank you to my fellow readers and Omnidawn Spring 2020 cohort. I love all your books. Congratulations. I hope you're able to celebrate amidst everything that's going on. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Rusty and Ken and the whole Omnidawn crew, Rob and Kayla. I've known Rusty and Ken for 15 years. Rusty was my teacher, my MFA program at University of San Francisco. And I actually interned for Omnidawn for a couple years. So I also have an inside look on how much love they put into every single book and how much they support their authors for decades now. This is my 5th book that they published, so I'm so grateful for their continued support. And I just love Rusty and Ken so much, and I wish I could have seen you in person. But soon we shall meet again. I'm zooming in from Hawaii, and the 3 poems I'm going to read are based here. And so I also want to acknowledge the Native Hawaiian people, the lands and waters of the place I've been living for 10 years now. And I also want to acknowledge my wife, who's watching our 2 kids in the next room. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to be Zooming with all of you right now. This first poem is called Rings of Fire. We host our daughter's first birthday party during the hottest April in history. Outside, my dad grills meat over charcoal. Inside, my mom steams rice and roasts vegetables. They've traveled from California, where drought carves trees into tinder. Paradise is burning. When our daughter's first fever spiked, the doctor said it's a sign she's fighting infection. Bloodshed surges with global temperatures which know no borders. If her fever doesn't break, the doctor continued, take her to the emergency room. Airstrikes detonate hospitals in Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, South Sudan. When she crowned, my wife said, it felt like rings of fire. Volcanoes erupt along Pacific fault lines. Sweltering heat waves scorch Australia. Forests in Indonesia are raised for palm oil plantations. Their ashes flock like ghost birds to our distant rib cages. Still, I crave an unfiltered cigarette, even though I quit years ago, and my breath no longer smells like my grandpa's overflowing ashtray. His parched cough still punctures the black lungs of cancer and denial. If she struggles to breathe, the doctor advised, give her an asthma inhaler. But tonight, we sing happy birthday and blow out the candles together. Smoke trembles as if we all exhaled the same flammable wish. So my daughter, or that daughter, is 6 years old now, and it's sad that it seems like the fires have even gotten worse. The second poem is called The Last Safe Habitat, and it's dedicated to this native Hawaiian bird called the Kauai-o'o, whose song was last heard in 1987. The last safe habitat. I don't want our daughter to know that Hawaii is the bird extinction capital of the world. I don't want her to walk around the island feeling haunted by tree roots buried under concrete. I don't want her to fear the invasive predators who slither, pounce, bite, swallow, disease, and multiply. I don't want her to see paintings and photographs of birds she'll never witness in the wild. I don't want her to imagine their bones in dark museum drawers. I don't want her to hear their voice recordings on the internet. I don't want her to memorize and recite the names of 77 lost species and subspecies. I don't want her to draw a timeline with the years each was first collected and last sighted. I don't want her to learn about the Kauai o'o, who was observed atop a flowering ohia tree, calling for a mate, day after day, season after season, because he didn't know he was the last of his kind. Until one day, he disappeared forever into a nest of avian silence. I don't want our daughter to calculate how many miles of fencing is needed to protect the endangered birds that remain. I don't want her to realize the most serious causes of extinction can't be fenced out. I want to convince her that extinction is not the end. I want to convince her that extinction is just a migration to the last safe habitat on Earth. I want to convince her that our winged relatives have arrived safely to their destination, a wondrous island with a climate we can never change, and a rainforest fertile with seeds and song. So this last poem, I actually need Rusty's help with this poem. It's a call and response poem. So I'm gonna ask Rusty to unmute herself if she can. Is that possible?
Can you hear me, Craig?
Yes, lovely
I
to hear your
love it.
voice. All right. This poem is called Chanting the Waters, and it was written for an event here in Hawaii to raise money for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. And during their struggle, their water struggle. And so I wrote this poem to perform at this event.
Will you give me the words too?
Yes, when I say the word say, you say water is life.
Got it. I can
All
do
right.
that.
All right, let's do it. Say.
Water is life. Sorry.
Say.
Water is life.
Because our bodies are 60% water. Because my wife labored for 24 hours through contracting waves. Because water breaks forth from shifting tectonic plates. Say.
Water is life.
Because amniotic fluid is 90% water. Because she breathed and breathed and breathed. Because our lungs are 80% water. Because our daughter crowned like a new island. Say.
Oh, yes. Water is life.
Because we tell creation stories about water, because our language flows from water, because our words are islands writ on water, because it takes more than 3 gallons of water to make a single sheet of paper. Say.
Water is life.
Because water is the next oil. Because 180,000 miles of US oil pipelines leak every day. Because we wage war over gods and water and oil. Say.
Water is life.
Because our planet is 70% water. Because only 3% of global water is fresh. Because it takes 2 gallons of water to refine a gallon of gasoline. Because it takes 22 gallons of water to make a pound of plastic. Because it takes 600 gallons of water to make 1 hamburger. Because the American water footprint is 2,000 gallons a day. Say.
Oh, water is life.
Because 1 billion people lack access to drinking water. Because women and children walk 4 miles every day to gather clean water and deliver it home. Say,
Water is life.
because our bones are 30% water. Because if you lose 5% of your body's water, you become feverish. If you lose 10% of your body's water, you become immobile. Because our bodies won't survive a week without water. Say,
Water is life.
because corporations privatize, dam, and bottle our waters, because plantations divert our waters, because animal slaughterhouses consume our waters, because pesticides, chemicals, lead, and waste poison our waters. Say,
Water is life.
because they bring their bulldozers and drills and drones, because we bring our feathers and lei and sage and shells and canoes and hashtags and totems, because they call us savage and primitive and riot, because we bring our treaties and the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, because they bring their banks and politicians and dogs and paychecks and pepper spray and bullets, because we bring our songs and schools and prayers and chants and ceremonies, because we say stop, keep the oil in the ground, because they say shut up and vanish, because we are not moving, because they bring their police and private militia, because we bring all our relations and all our generations and all our live streams. Say,
Water is life.
because our drumming sounds like rain after drought echoing against taut skin, because our skin is 60% water. Say,
Water is life.
because every year millions of children die from waterborne diseases, because every day thousands of children die from waterborne diseases, because by the end of this poem 5 children will die from waterborne diseases. Say,
Water is life.
because our daughter loves playing in the ocean, because someday she'll ask, where does the ocean end? Because we'll point to the dilating horizon. Say,
Water is life.
because our eyes are 95% water, because we'll tell her ocean has no end, because sky and clouds lift ocean, because mountains embrace ocean into blessings of rain, because ocean, sky, rain fills aquifers and lakes, because ocean, sky, rain, lake flows into the Missouri River, because ocean, sky, rain, lake, river returns to the Pacific and connects us to our cousins at Standing Rock, because our blood is 90% water. Say,
Water is life.
because our hearts are 75% water, because I'll teach our daughter our people's word for water, Hanum, Hanum, Hanum. So the sound of water will always carry her home. Say,
Water is life.
say,
Water is life.
say.
Water is life.
So beautiful to hear your voice,
Oh, Craig, I love this.
Rusty. Thank you,
Everyone's
everybody.
been wonderful, and it's been a pleasure to be part of your reading. Goddess bless everyone.
Mahalo. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Craig Santos Perez bringing us life. Our sixth reader is L.M. Rivera, and this is his book, Against Heidegger. And L.M. Lucas Rivera, the book is hypnotic, prophetic series of poems that that are really they have a Gnostic flavoring or background. Now he has chosen to show us a cinepoem instead, which is titled Le Sujet Supposé Savoir, meaning roughly the presumed subject is knowing. And just as an historic kind of context for what you're going to see, Heidegger had high hopes for Nazism, which were disappointed. So he kind of stood aside but he never really repudiated it. So here's the film.
Was it James Baldwin who said, "You think your pain and your sorrow are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read"? Tragedians are comedians in conspicuous drag. A young German told me that. But she didn't have the ears to hear my response as a passing bat circled overhead. And why not embrace a shadow like 3 cliffs collapsing into the sea? A sea as blue as Sternberg's variety show. I didn't know comic interplay before this, the value of money or dramatic intention. But I knew that this letter to you would be my last. And if it is to be, should I say something true or merely map a taxonomy of waves, wants, causes, cases, and losses? In the archive, no one is left untouched. In the driveway, a massacred rabbit bleeds on a cracked plane. In the book of deceptive visions, he stares into the black forest, looking for some dead souls and a teacup.
Wow. Let me thank all these wonderful poets. Deep thank you. Thanks to Rusty and Ken. And here comes Joyce.
Thank you all. Thank you, wonderful poets. Thank you to Omnidawn. Thank you to Rusty and Ken for producing and creating these wonderful books. Please purchase them. Look in the chat box. Purchase them directly from Omnidawn. And you'll get them directly. And I really hope you do that. Thanks to Molly Baldridge, our incredible tech support. Yay! And thank you for joining us here for another Poetry Flash virtual extravaganza. Thank you so much.